Good morning, everyone. Live here. I think we're up and running. Got a little buddy here with me this morning to help out. He was asleep. It was touch and go for a minute. We weren't sure if we were going to scream through the devotional or not. But here we are. So we'll get started here. Let's see what time it is. It's 9:28, couple minutes. Turn that light down. There we go. That's better. Good morning to the Gunkles. Good morning, Ruse. Good morning to the Hughes, maybe Sarah and Mike, or probably just Sarah. Well, let's see here. My phone is a sound machine here, so I hope you can all still hear me. 9:31. Okay. If you can't hear me, just read my lips because the sound machine stays when this guy's sleeping. Okay. Well, it's 9:31, and I think I've got my things together here. So if you're joining us this morning and I don't know you or you don't know me, my name is Sam Donica. I'm the pastor to youth and families at Crossroads Neighborhood Church. So welcome, and glad to be together with you here digitally. If you're just joining us, and so welcome to all who are here. Let's begin. We begin each of our devotionals with the Lord's Prayer. So let's say that together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us. Well, each day, weekday, we have a devotionalist lead a devotion from our open word readings. And if you don't know what that is, our church is practicing a community habit together of reading 2 chapters of Old and New Testament every day. I guess right now we're technically both Old Testament chapters because we're going through the Psalms and the book of Numbers, but 2 chapters a day takes about 7 minutes, and so we're all doing together. And each weekday, Monday through Friday at 9:30, we lead a devotional from that reading. So the idea is we've all read the text together that day, or will at some point that day, and then share a devotional on our common reading of Scripture. So, so our reflection this morning is going to be from Psalm 72. And as I read this psalm, it was really different than a lot of the psalms that we read about David. Many of his psalms, as Pastor Jeremy talked about on Sunday, were our pleas, our revelations of his own doubt that he's putting before God. And that's a beautiful, necessary aspect of our faith. But this psalm really, the confidence and the boldness of his prayers struck me as I read it this morning. And it's really a psalm of declaration, and a psalm that points to the power of words, the power of words. So I'll read a few verses. Verse 3. And just listen for the kind of declarations that he's making here, the things that he's asking for. Let the mountains bear prosperity for people, and the hills in righteousness. May the people fear you while the sun endures, and as long as the moon, throughout all generations. In his days may the righteous flourish and peace abound till the moon, and may his name endure forever. His fame continue as long as the sun, and may people be blessed in him. All nations call him blessed. Now this is a psalm about Solomon, but you can't help but hear the echoes of the cry and declaration for a king who will rule in complete peace and complete justice and complete righteousness in the way that God does. And that's the way that the psalm actually begins. Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to the royal son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. And isn't that a beautiful picture of what the King Jesus does? In the way that he judges, in the way that he rules over this world, in the way that he will rule for eternity. But it really just stuck with me, the kind of audacity to say something like that, to ask for something so colossal as the mountains bearing prosperity for the people. I mean, who asks for something like that? But I realized that's the same attitude that Jesus had when it came to words and then when it came to prayer. He says in Matthew 17:20, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Who talks to mountains and tells them to move? Jesus encourages us to. He also, in Matthew 6, just before he prays the Lord's Prayer, he invites us to pray the Lord's Prayer, I should say. This verse has really been resonating with me for several weeks now, but the verse right before the Lord's Prayer, when he says, pray then like this, right before that, he says, your Father knows what you need even before you ask. And there's a real kind of just paradox of what's the point of words when God knows everything? What's the point of prayer when God sees and is all knowing in that way? And it's a reminder, I think, and an invitation to the real power of words, the power of declaration, the power of prayer, and God's call to us to pray and to speak words, because God created the world with nothing more than a few declarations of His words, and God sent His Son Jesus, who is said to be the Word, the final word of life and light and hope to the world. The word that God wants to speak and has spoken and is speaking over all people and to all people. The one word that God longs for people to hear and to receive and to embrace. One of my favorite authors, Frederick Buechner, says, words are power, essentially the power of creation. And by my words, I both discover and create who I am. When God said, let there be light, there was light where before there was only darkness. When I say, I love you, there is love where before there was only ambiguous silence. And in a sense, I do not love you first and then speak it, but only by speaking it do I give it reality. There are some things that only when they are spoken, and that when they are spoken, they're spoken into reality. And in Jesus, we declare all kinds of things, all kinds of realities that we need, that one another needs. We declare forgiveness. We declare peace. We declare hope. We declare love. We declare protection. We declare all kinds of things for one another and for ourselves. And it's in spoken words sent out into seemingly empty, open air that God hears and God receives. It's in those kind of that foolishness of what do words really matter? What does saying something out loud really matter? It's in the foolishness of that God hears prayer, that God meets us, that God touches us, and God hears our prayers. And I'll end with a story about the power of words in a way in prayer. And I may have told this story in the sermon before, I can't remember. But when I was in the process of discerning where to go to seminary, I was living back at home and working, and I was in kind of communication with the pastor at my church at the time, a woman named Jessica. And we had talked about seminary, and I said, well, I at that point I knew I was going to go to Asbury, and so we got together and met, and she asked me, what have you done up to this point to kind of move forward in the process? And I said, well, I've applied and been accepted, and so I know that's where I'm going. And she asked me a little bit about how do you plan to pay for it? And I said, well, and it was a little, apparently a tiny bit of like a half a mustard seed of faith, maybe, and probably a lot of pride and arrogance and resistance still in me, that I said, well, this was God's plan for my life. So if He wants me to go to seminary, He can pay for it. And so I applied to Asbury for financial aid, and that's about as far all I've done. And so we end our meeting, and about a week later, she called me, and she just was touching base, and she said, what have you made any progress? What have you heard back from financial aid, anything like that? And I said, no, I haven't done anything else. I've just been I've just been praying. And she said, well, I have something that's in the works that I wondered if you had been praying into existence. Those are the words she used. I wondered if you had been praying into existence. And she didn't tell me what it was at the time, so I was kind of left wondering what it was. Well, it turns out that there had been a man in our church, a man named Eddie Bigby, who's since gone to be with Jesus, that had called her, and they would have meetings face to face from time to time. And so she went to his house. And he said, well, his wife had passed at the time, and he was Methodist and she was Catholic, and they had always wanted to put someone, he told her this, they'd always wanted to put someone through each of those two denominational seminaries. And he wondered if she knew anyone who might be a good candidate. And she said, well, I just might know someone. And he was intrigued. And the one question he had that I still never really I wondered about, he said, is he tall? And she said, well, as a matter of fact, he is tall. And he sat there and scratched his head for a minute and then said, this might just work. So apparently being tall was necessary in his mind. But the long story short was that through that connection, a trust was set up, and Eddie Bigby paid every dime of my tuition to go to seminary, and I came out of school debt-free. I don't remember the words that I prayed. I don't remember the words that I said to God. But God was working through simple prayers that shouldn't have even counted, if I'm honest, because of my own attitude in my own heart. But I really believe that God wanted to show me, I am doing this. I'm going to do things you could never do. And I'm going to show you that this is the way that I want to lead your life. And that story has always stuck with me. And those people have been kind of woven into my life now. And it was all through words spoken, probably not even out loud at the time. But I wonder what in your life may need to be prayed into existence. What may need to be declared over you, over a family member, over whatever it is, a situation. What might you need to declare and hear with your own ears, even before it becomes reality? I pray that God would meet you in that today and encourage you and give you courage to pray words that you may need to hear or someone else may need to hear. So I bless you in that. And we'll close today with our family blessing from the book of Numbers. So I put this blessing on you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face towards you and give you peace. Amen.